KPIX CBS, and like us on Facebook.
We are a nation getting older. By the middle of the century, the number of Americans aged 90 and above is projected to quadruple. While that's good news for those of us who want to stick around, it also means more time literally to start to lose our minds. Dementia, including that most dreaded form, Alzheimer's disease, is a looming threat and a primary focus of the 90-plus study. Participants are asked to donate their brains to the study after they die, so researchers can compare what they saw in life to the secrets buried deep within. And the picture isn't always matching up, bringing new discoveries and new questions about what may actually be causing dementia in the oldest old and what we may be able to do about it. You know, I think that it was common belief that if you got to 90 and you didn't have dementia or Alzheimer's, that you weren't going to get it.
Unfortunately, no. I really expected to find that. But in our study, that's not to happen.
It's not true.
No.
Oh, 62.
It turns out the risk of developing dementia doubles every 5 years, starting at the age of 65, and it keeps right on doubling.
Bingo!
And given the growth in numbers of the oldest old by mid-century,
We are going to have more people with dementia over the age of 90 than we currently have at all ages put together.
we're not even thinking about it.
We should be.
Where do I start?
As charming and engaging as all the 90-plussers we met were, one who we were particularly moved by was 96-year-old Ted Rosenbaum, a former American history teacher who's been married for 63 years.
You still look lovely to me. I was very lucky. So now at this stage of the game, if it's petering out, just reminiscing about our past is a source of incalculable joy.
An orange and a banana are alike because they're both
Fruits.
exactly.
Ted did well on parts of the 90-plus exam, like repeating long strings of numbers backwards.
6, 1, 8, 4, 3.
3, 4, 8, 1, 6.
But when it came time to remember the 3 words she had told him just 40 seconds earlier,
3 words.
Yep.
Give me a hint.
he was lost.
3 words.
There were 3 words.
And that wasn't his only problem.
What is today's date?
Today's date? Today's date.
Does he have dementia at this point?
Yes, Ted has dementia. You know, unfortunately, there's no blood test, there's no x-ray. It's an examiner finding out that an individual has problems in 2 or more of the main things the brain does for them. So that's where he is.
And what's perhaps the most devastating is he knows it.
My worst condition is my memory.
When you can't remember something, what goes on inside you?
Terrible frustration, terrible, you know, it's having more and more of a negative impact on me psychologically.
Determining what's behind his memory loss isn't easy, since diseases like Alzheimer's can only be definitively diagnosed in the brain after death. So it's after the 90-plussers die that a new round of sleuthing begins. When subjects in the study donate their brains, they come here to neuropathologist Dr. Ronald Kim. He showed us one of the things he always looks for, the plaques and tangles in the brain that are the telltale signs of Alzheimer's disease.
It forms all of these plaques.
All these brown spots
Yes, are plaques, that's correct. And in an individual like this, I would expect the patient to be demented.
You read newspapers every day?
Yes, I read them in the evening.
Loring Bigelow spent 5 years in the study. He passed away last summer, and while Dr. Kim studies his brain, the rest of the 90-plus team independently reviews years of his test results and videos to assess whether he had developed dementia, and if so, from what. While early on his scores were strong,
Who is our president?
Obama.
over the years there was a gradual but unmistakable decline. He'd pick up a newspaper he had just finished, use the TV remote to try and make a phone call.
Do you know who is the president?
I want to say Herbert Hoover.
Okay.
I can't think of it.
Not remember his age, anxious.
The consensus here was likely Alzheimer's, which presumes a brain with plaques and tangles.
Are we ready to hear the truth?
Only then do they open up Dr. Kim's report.
Plaques, 0, so no plaques. Actually.
Wow.
No cortical tangles anywhere.
That's pretty amazing.
What's amazing is they're finding that 40% of the time in people over 90, what doctors would think is Alzheimer's isn't. In Loring Bigelow's brain, Dr. Kim found something else, something the 90-plus study is finding quite a bit, evidence of tiny microscopic strokes called microinfarcts. His brain was full of them.
Here is a microinfarct. It's the hole, which is basically a tiny stroke.
So you've got all this tissue is missing.
If you find one, it suggests that you should probably look for others, and some patients may have hundreds or thousands of them.
These microscopic strokes are insidious because people don't even know they're having them.
They can be totally silent, and slowly but surely over time, you're picking off, you're disconnecting your cortex from the rest of the brain, and then you start to become demented. It can look just like Alzheimer's disease clinically.
Do you know anything we can do to prevent these mini strokes?
I wish I did, but I will soon, I hope.
Kawa suspects one thing that may cause them is low blood pressure, and she has some evidence. While none of the factors from the original Leisure World study, vitamins, alcohol, caffeine, even exercise, seem to lower people's risk of getting dementia, the 90-plus study discovered that high blood pressure did.
If you have high blood pressure, it looks like your risk of dementia is lower
Lower.
than if you don't have high blood pressure.
High blood pressure, lower risk of dementia.
In a 90-year-old.
High blood pressure is still dangerous if you're younger. Yet another reason, she says, it's so important to study the oldest old.
Most of what we know, we study in much younger individuals, and 50, 60, maybe 70-year-olds. And then we just kind of assume that the same thing should happen in older people.
And you're saying we shouldn't?
I think we shouldn't.
Take this next counterintuitive finding, this time in the 90-plus subjects who have no dementia.
We're finding out that if you die without dementia in this age group, about half the time you still have plaques and tangles in your head.
No. So you can exhibit Alzheimer's and not have plaques and tangles half the time, and the reverse?
Both directions.
You're fine and you do have plaques and tangles? So what do you make of that?
I mean, one possibility is that plaques and tangles have nothing to do with it. But it might be that plaques and tangles are very, very important, but just a 90-year-old who has them and didn't develop thinking problems has some way of getting around them that maybe all the rest of us would like to know.
So now they're looking at people with no signs of dementia, like Ruthie Stahl, Lou Torado, Sid Shero, and Jane Whistler, to see if they have plaques and tangles, but are not affected by them. There's a new type of PET scan that for the first time makes it possible to find plaques during life.
Let me help you with that.
So the 90-plus study is engaged in the delicate task of putting 99-year-olds like Jane Whistler into scanners. Sid Shero, at 92, hopped right in.
Jane and Sid both have very, very, very good thinking, as you saw.
Yes, definitely.
And it turns out that one of their scans is positive and one is negative.
She showed them to us, one on top of the other. Yellow and red indicate the presence of amyloid plaque.
This is Miss Whistler, and this is Mr. Shero.
Well, I'm surprised, having talked to him, that I'm seeing yellow and red here. Kind of stunning.
Hello, Mr. Shero.
Dr. K was.
So what does that mean for Sid? The positive scan means statistically he's at greater risk of cognitive decline. But Dr. Kawa says the fact that he's doing so well in spite of the plaque in his brain and his stroke means he may have that something protective and special that could help the rest of us. She says they'll be keeping a close watch on him. If it's unclear that the pathology hooks up with what you're seeing, what does that mean in your mind?
I think we're looking for too simple an answer. I think we want one thing to explain Alzheimer's. Look at something different, like what makes skin wrinkle? Well, I mean, getting older makes skin wrinkle. Being in the sun too much makes skin wrinkle. Not taking care of your diet. And you put all those together and they all contribute. And I think it might turn out to be the same for our thinking, especially in late life. That it's not just Alzheimer's pathology from plaques or not just microinfarcts, but the number of these hits that you take. And after a while, you can't withstand them all.
Let me hold the chair for you.
There's one last thing we wondered about in the over 90 crowd, and that's romance. Helen Weil, 92, and Henry Tornell, 94, both widowed, have been dating for 3 years. So do you see each other every day, several times every day, once a day? How does it work?
Gets 1 day off a week.
It's true. Tuesday is a day off. It's my day off. Helen and Henry love being part of the 90-plus study, and both have signed up to donate their brains after they die. Henry has only one problem with the whole enterprise: what the study hasn't asked about.
I asked them, aren't you going to ask us any questions about our sex life? And they said no.
Well, I will. How's your sex life? You brought it up.
See, he is funny, you know that.
Well, I don't know. I'm not laughing. How's your sex life?
He's blushing.
He's blushing. But is that part of, do you think that has something to do with...
I would say it has a big part.
Helen?
We're very we're very affectionate.
But do you think that sex is an important part of staying young?
Yes.
Okay, are we all ready?
The 90-plus study has just gotten another 5-year round of NIH funding to delve deeper into risk factors for specific types of dementia, like those microinfarcts, and to search for genes that may be protective in their continuing search for the secrets of the oldest old.
I really believe that when we learn things from the 90-year-olds, they're going to be helping the 60 and 70-year-olds, not just how to become 90-year-olds, but how to do it with style and as good a function as possible.
Well, obviously you've already started that by telling us that we should have some wine and we should have some coffee.
And socialize. And exercise.
And gain weight.
And that's my favorite.
My favorite, too. Absolutely. And maybe a little something else.
Oh, me.